These are the corrections for quiz 2. The answers are here. You should grade your quiz and check your answers with the grade links. There are 10 of them, so each one you get wrong is 10 points off. Number 1 was 1.5. Number 2 was 1 7/18. Number 3 was 6 4/15. Number 4 was 10 19/24. Number 5 was 11 11/11. Number 6 was 2/5. Number 7 was 2/15. Number 8 was 4.5. Number 9 was 5 3/20. And number 10 was 4 5/36. By the way, I was very disappointed with the grades on this. I thought you were going to do much better. But when I looked at the things you got wrong, they were careless things. Like a bunch of you for number 2 wrote 1 7/8 instead of 1 7/18. I bet you had the right work, but you sent me the wrong answer. You have to make sure of that. Another problem a number of people had was with subtraction, they wound up adding instead of subtracting. You got to look at the sign and do what the problem says to do. The first 5 were adding, the second 5 were subtracting. Anyway, I'm going to go through them real quickly. Number 1 was 5/8 plus 7/8. Again, very easy because you already have a common denominator. Add the numerators, keep the denominator the same. 5 plus 7 is 12/8. That's my answer, but it's wrong because it's improper. Divide 8 into 12 goes once. Remainder 4/8. A couple of people gave me that. That's wrong because it has to be simplified. 4 goes into 4 once, 4 goes into 8 twice. The real answer is 1 1/2. And again, if you didn't make it proper, it's wrong. If you didn't simplify, it's wrong. Some people gave me 3/2. That's improper. Some people gave me 1 4/8. That's not simplified. It has to be both proper and simplified. Number 2 didn't have mixed numerals, it was fractions. It was 5/9 plus 5/6, but you did have to find a common denominator for 9 and 6. List the 9 times table until you find something like 6 goes into evenly. 9 times 1 is 9, 6 doesn't go into that. 9 times 2 is 18, 6 does go into that. The common denominator was 18. Then you had to find the missing numerators. 9 goes into 18 2 times 5 is 10. 6 goes into 18 3 times 5 is 15. So you add 10 plus 15, that equals 25 over 18. That is improper. Make it proper by dividing 18 into 25. It goes 1 time 18 is 18, remainder 7, and your answer is 1 7/18. By the way, make sure that's simplified. It is, and that's your final answer. And again, a whole bunch of people gave me 1 7/8, and I think you just typed in your answer wrong. I can only grade what you give me. I can't assume that you knew what you were talking about. So make sure what you enter is what you mean to enter. Number 3 was 2 2/3 plus 3 3/5. You need a common denominator for 2 and 3. List the 5 times table till you find something that 3 goes into. 5 times 1 is 5. 3 doesn't go into that. 5 times 2 is 10. Excuse me. 3 doesn't go into that. 5 times 3 is 15. 3 does go into that. My common denominator was 15. Then I have to find the missing numerator. 3 goes into 15 5 times 2 is 10. 5 goes into 15 3 times 3 is 9. Now I add. Add my whole numbers, 2 and 3 is 5. Add my numerators, 10 and 9 is 19/15. By the way, that's my answer, but it's wrong because it's improper. 15 is bigger than 9. Divide 15 into 19. Try that again. 19 is bigger than 15. Divide 15 into 19 goes once. Remainder 4. You get 1 4/15. But your answer is not 1 4/15. You got to add the 1 to the 5, and your answer is 6 4/15. Make sure it's simplified. It is. That's your final answer. The next problem, number 4, said 7 and 5/12 plus 3 and 3/8. Again, I need a common denominator for 12 and 8. List the 12 times table till you find something that 8 goes into. 12 times 1 is 12, 8 does not go into that. 12 times 2 is 24, 8 goes into that. That is my common denominator. Now I got to find my missing numerator. 12 goes into 24, 2 times 5 is 10. 8 goes into 24, 3 times 3 is 9. Add, you get 19 24ths, and 7 plus 3 is 10. By the way, this is the easiest one of all because it's already proper and it's already simplified, and it is your final answer. All right? And the last one on the adding, number 5, the last addition, was 2 and 1/2 plus 3 and 3/4 plus 5 and 2/5. And again, I have to add by finding a common denominator for 2, 4, and 5. I have to list the 5 times table until I find something that 2 and 4 both go into. 5 times 1 is 5, 2 doesn't go into that. 5 times 2 is 10, 2 goes into that, but 4 doesn't go into that. 5 times 3 is 15, 2 doesn't go into that. 5 times 4 is 20, 2 goes into 20, and 4 goes into 20. That is my common denominator. And again, that's the first thing you have to do is find the common denominator, and that's the way to find it. 2 goes into 20 10 times, 10 times 1 is 10. 4 goes into 25 times, 5 times 3 is 15. And 5 goes into 24 times, 4 times 2 is 8. Now I can add 10, 15, and 8. 8 and 5 is 13, carry you 1. 1 and 1 is 2, and 1 is 3. I get 33 20ths. But don't forget the whole numbers. 2 plus 3 is 5, plus 5 is 10. Again, that's my answer, but it's wrong because it's improper. 33 is bigger than 20. Divide 20 into 33 goes 1 time, remainder 13 20ths. Add the 1 to the 10, you get 11 and 13 20ths. And then you make sure it's simplified, okay, and it is. I made a mistake somewhere because this is the wrong answer. Let's see where I made my mistake. Maybe I copied the problem wrong. 1/2, 3/4, 2/3. I copied the problem wrong. Forget everything I just did. Let's try again with the right problem. This was not 2/5, it was 2/3. By the way, it's impossible to get the right answer if you have the wrong problem. Dumb. By the way, it's a lot easier to find this common denominator too. 4 is the biggest denominator. 4 times 1 is 4. 2 goes into that, but 3 doesn't. 4 times 2 is 8. 2 goes into that, but 3 doesn't. 4 times 3 is 12. 2 goes into that, and 3 goes into that. That's my common denominator. I wasted a lot of time doing the problem with the wrong denominator because I'm a dummy and I couldn't read. 2 goes into 12. 6 times 1 is 6. 4 goes into 12 3 times 3 is 9. 3 goes into 12 4 times 2 is 8. Now I can add my whole numbers. 3 plus 2 is 5, plus 5 is 10. I can add my numerators, 6, 9, and 8. 6 plus 9 is 15, plus 8 is 23 12ths. And again, it's improper. Divide 12 into 23 goes 1 time, remainder 11 12ths. Add the 1 to the 10, and you get 11 and 11 12ths. And that is the right answer, and that is the right work. Be nice to have the right problem so you can get the right work. Now we go to problem number 6. It's a subtraction problem, 7/10 minus 3/10. Again, it's a subtraction problem, so don't add, okay? Subtract. 7 minus 3 is 4/10. Subtract numerators, keep the denominator the same, but your answer's wrong because it can be simplified. 2 goes into 4 2 times, 2 goes into 10 5 times, and that's where you get the answer of 2/5. And again, a whole bunch of people gave me 4/10, okay, because they subtracted right, but they forgot to simplify. And some people gave me the whole number 1 because they added instead of subtracted. So anyway, the right answer is 2/5. Number 7 rather, is 4/5 minus 2/3. I need a common denominator for 5 and 3. 5 times 1 is 5. 3 doesn't go into that. 5 times 2 is 10. 3 doesn't go into that. 5 times 3 is 15. 3 does go into that. By the way, we found that same common denominator for problem number 3. Common denominator is 15. Now I got to find the missing numerator. 5 goes into 15 3 times. 3 times 4 is 12. 3 goes into 15 5 times. 5 times 2 is 10. I can subtract. 12 minus 10 is 2/15. It's proper, it's simplified, and it is my final answer. So again, excuse me, both that one was easy because it was both simplified and proper. Number 8 says 6 and 5/6 minus 2 and 1/3. I need a common denominator for 6 and 3. That's pretty easy. 6 times 1 is 6, and 3 goes into that. The common denominator is 6. By the way, bring the whole number over in case you have to borrow. 6 goes into 6 once. 1 times 5 is 5. 3 goes into 6 twice. 2 times 1 is 2. I can subtract. 5 minus 2, excuse me, is 3/6, and 6 minus 2 is 4. By the way, that's my answer, but it's wrong because it has to be simplified. What goes into 3 and 6? 3 does. 3 goes into 3 once, 3 goes into 6 twice, and the real answer is 4 and 1/2. Again, all fractions must be simplified. Again, that's the right answer. And notice I didn't even have to borrow. By the way, I was very disappointed in myself for giving you this quiz because it turns out none of them did you have to borrow in. And that's the thing I'm the most worried about. By the way, that's what your homework in the textbook was on today. Okay, it was on subtraction where you have to borrow. But I'm worried because even when you didn't have to borrow, most of you couldn't get the right answers, and that's scary. Anyway, now I need a common denominator for 10 and 4. List the 10 times table till you find something that 4 goes into. 10 times 1 is 10. 4 doesn't go into that. 10 times 2 is 20. 4 does go into that. That is my common denominator. Bring my whole numbers over in case I have to borrow. 10 goes into 22 times 9 is 18. 4 goes into 25 times 3 is 15. And again, I don't even need to borrow. I just need to subtract numerators. 18 minus 15 is 3. Keep the denominator same, 20. And subtract whole numbers. 7 minus 2 is 5. And again, it's proper, it's simplified, and it is your final answer. 5 and 3/20. And you didn't have to borrow. And the last problem was 6 and 7/12 minus 2 and 4/9. I need a common denominator for 12 and 9. List the 12 times table until you find something 9 goes into. 12 times 1 is 12, 9 doesn't go into that. 12 times 2 is 24, 9 doesn't go into that. 12 times 3 is 27. I'm sorry. 12 times 3 is 36. 9 does go into that. My common denominator is 36. Bring the whole numbers over in case you have to borrow. 12 goes into 36, 3 times 7 is 21. 9 goes into 36, 4 times 4 is 16. I don't need to borrow, and again, that's why you should have done really good on this quiz. 21 minus 16 is 5/36, and 6 minus 2 is 4. Is it proper? Yes. Is it simplified? Yes. And that is the right answer to number 10. And again, I went through those real fast. You might have to go back and look at them again. I think, though, most of the mistakes you made were careless ones. But I'm really concerned if you couldn't get the subtraction 8, 9, and 10 right when you didn't have to borrow, what is going to happen when you do have to borrow? And I promise you, you will have to borrow. Again, I gave you a homework with borrowing with fractions that's due for tomorrow. Some people already turned it in today, I'm surprised, and they did real well on it. So I hope everyone does well. Good luck.